Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Then check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something to inspire you. That's dealtohealteas.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.com. Again, that's dealtohealteas.com. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Ernest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Ernest James. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Ernest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. Therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to our new YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, on all of your podcast listening platforms. Make sure also you go to YouTube, our new YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, where you will find not only the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but you'll also find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is our partner podcast. So make sure you guys go and check that out. So we're going to jump right into it. Today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss Andrea Pass. Did I say it right?
Andrea, got it. Yep.
Good. I was trying to. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. We want to say, first of all, thank you for being here, because you could have been doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So we're going to jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to my audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I'm the owner of Andrea Pass Public Relations, a solopreneurship that I started about 7 years ago. I had worked for many public relations agencies after starting at the CBS radio division in New York City way back when. And I'm loving entrepreneurship. It's so wonderful to work with so many different clients in different areas all around the country and to secure press coverage. So that's what I do all day long. I secure press coverage for clients to help them grow their business by reaching new audiences. So it's exciting because one day I'm working on a book with an author, and the next day I'm working on a small business, and the next day I'm working on a nonprofit. And so it never gets boring. I love what I do. So, they say, if you love what you do, you haven't worked a day in your life. But I love what I do, and I love public relations.
Oh, that's good. I might need your services a little bit. I'm trying to branch out into some other areas with the podcasting. Also, I'm an author. I actually have a book that's in in the works, let me say. And I just released released the website taking free, not free, pre-orders.
Yeah,
So I can get it finished.
and it's interesting because there are so many authors and so many books, but if you're not out there doing public relations for your book, and I had a call a number of months ago with a gentleman who wrote a novel.
Mhm.
And I said, so are your friends and family buying it on Amazon? Oh, I can't ask them that. And I said, no, you have to ask them because they need to do reviews on Amazon,
Right.
because that's where people buy their books, on Amazon, because no one pays for shipping anymore. And so you want to be on Amazon, but you got to get the message out there. And then he said to me, well, I have a job, so I could only do interviews at noon. Well, if I have a journalist that wants to do an interview at 2 or at 10, they're not going to go and change their schedule to meet your lunch hour because you can't have an interview. And so he never did anything, never did any press. I don't think the book went anywhere. But if you're going to write the book, make sure people know about the book and get out there and do public relations.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So we definitely gonna talk about that because like I said, I might need your services. But let's go back into your story because you said you're a solopreneur now, right? But that was more recent. You said within the 7 years. So before that, what was your what was your work life, should I say, before that even, or should let me ask you this way: what was your work life before, and did that work life actually push you into what you're doing now?
Well, it's very interesting because I've always worked prior to this for someone else. Their name was on the door.
Mhm.
Yet I was doing all the work. I was bringing in the new business. I was getting all the press coverage. I was overseeing the staff. I did everything, and the owner benefited. And
Mhm.
2 jobs ago, I was working for a bully boss. And it was a time that my kids were still in school, and I had a really great salary, and college was coming up. So I wasn't making a move at that time because I had a really good salary. But he was mentally abusive. And I call him the bully boss.
Yeah.
And I survived the bully boss because I eventually left. But the bully boss would find something negative to say about everything. The clients were thrilled with my public relations work. They couldn't say anything nicer. But the boss found reasons to do unnecessary work. An example is he would have us write 12-page documents about every interview. So if I had a client who was going to appear on your podcast, I had to research every episode you've ever done and write an overview of every single episode and your audience and your numbers. The client wasn't reading this 12 to 15-page document.
Definitely not.
The client wanted to know, this is where you had to be.
Yep.
This is the topic. These are your 3 key message points to bring up during that interview. And then let's move on to the next interview. But this bully boss and his bully daughter, who was my intern, started as my intern and eventually, over the years, became my boss. And they had no life. They were in the office at 7 in the morning. They were in the office till 7 at night. They worked all day on Sunday. There was no life. And he would say things to me. We'd be at a conference in Las Vegas for a client. And he'd say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you didn't do this. And at one point, I said to him at a dinner at a really nice restaurant, I said, why don't you fire me right now and put me on a plane and I'll go home? Oh, Andrea, don't be silly. And then the client calls, Andrea, where are you? Come have dinner with us. And I'm having dinner with the bully boss. So after dinner, we walk to the other restaurant and everyone's hugging me. Andrea's here. No one acknowledged him. No one liked him. He was a bully. And, I put up with that because of the salary. I had no life. I mean, Ernest, there were times I was at a wedding in the hallway on the phone, working. I was on a vacation and I get yelled at. We've been trying to reach you. Well, I'm snorkeling in Barbados. I got on the bus to go to the cruise ship. I saw all these messages. You can't be out of touch. Well, they haven't made, underwater cell phones yet. And I also had my vacation approved. So why are you calling me?
Right.
And then they would tell the clients to call me on vacation. The client didn't realize I was on vacation. They forgot. When I'm in the middle of Disney and my client calls, I said, hey, is everything all right? He says, yeah, where are you? I said, I'm in Disney World. He says, I don't need to talk to you now. I'll talk to you next week when you get back. This isn't urgent. We were not finding the cure for cancer.
Right.
The public relations I do is not urgent PR. So he really verbally and mentally abused the staff. He fired people, hundreds and hundreds of people over the 8.5 years I was there. Wow. Nothing anyone did was good enough for him. And he was mean. And I knew him because I worked with him at a previous company years earlier. And but I survived him because I realized I need to leave.
Yeah.
And I made this decision and I did my homework and I found a competing public relations firm that was going to be at a trade show I was at. Did my homework. The boss says to me, I've got to go to my room to do some calls. That was my opportunity. I went over to this other PR firm, introduced myself, and they said, we know who you are. I had an amazing reputation. I said, could you step away from your booth? Because I didn't want anyone to see me there. I said, I'm looking to make a career change. And the owner said, can you start Labor Day? There was no discussion. Within 2 seconds, she offered me a job.
Yeah.
I went to work for her. And the bully boss was horrible. I gave my notice and said I didn't have a job. I didn't need him knowing my business.
Right.
And
I think two things is one thing to have to deal with a boss, that's you don't necessarily like, like you said, nobody liked them. And I think we kind of get locked in because you mentioned about that you had a good salary. And I think that a lot of times that makes us stay longer than we should, definitely even in myself, even though I love my job, there are times though where we have to adjust because I work in construction, for my day job. And so in between, projects, we might be laid off or whatever. And sometimes, people ask me like, well, why don't you just do something else? And I'm like, I can't find nothing else that pays as good. You know what I mean?
We find a career and we find what we're good at and we stick with that. But I think that recognizing that you're worthy, that if that boss is abusing you mentally, Sunday mornings, we call them nasty grams, nasty emails, get this done, get this done, get this done. We worked all day on Sunday. And it was just, it was my special birthday.
Right.
He wrote me these nasty emails. He thought my birthday was Friday because he had gotten a cake. Big whoop, he got a cake. And I actually drove my car to a local park and I just sat there bawling my eyes out on my birthday, because I didn't want my husband, my kids seeing me doing this. And I was so upset and so hysterical that I called a coworker and she had gotten the abusive emails as well. And, she just, talked me off the ledge. But no one should be treated that way.
Right.
And there's another job out there for you. And, plan, look for a job while you have a job, but you don't have to put up with a bully boss. And to this day, I have never spoken his name.
You don't need to. You got he's the bully boss. That's his name. But out of that, you got this new job, which is great. And then that even leads you to, or should I say, how does that lead you into entrepreneurship? Because I
had been at this working. I live in New Jersey, and I went to a company based in LA, and I was remote. So I was doing go-to meetings and all of this way before everyone else started into
Yeah.
Zoom and Teams and all of these platforms. And they were a lovely, lovely group of people. They had a different company culture than I was used to. But, some were really nice. Others were punching a clock. And they would show up. They had to be there at 8 a.m. and they'd show up at 20 to 9. And then they'd go out at 10 after 9 to get a coffee when there was a full kitchen with coffee. So they had a very laid back attitude. And me, when you hire me, I work.
Yeah.
If I have to be at my desk at 8, I will be at my desk at 5 to 8 with my coffee. I never take advantage. So I was there for a number of years, helped them, build up the firm. And then she decided, the owner, that she was going to take the firm in a different direction and got rid of a third of the firm. And within a week, another third left. So it was the perfect opportunity because I was already talking to a bunch of business contacts who said, Andrea, go out on your own. We'll hire you. And so within 4 days, I had a full slate of clients. I had a client who bought me my first business cards. I had a connection that made my first website. And I was on my way. And I never looked back. I talk about the situation. I talked about how I healed from the bully boss. And thank goodness the agency I went to in Los Angeles, she really helped me. She protected me. We were at conferences. The bully boss was there. And she made sure that I didn't run into him, that I didn't make any wrong steps, because he was just evil. And now his company is not doing too well. And, the bullied daughter is overseas working somewhere in the Middle East. No one wants any part of them. And, I'm in touch with people who used to work there because we survived. So we survived. But I learned by becoming an entrepreneur and starting Andrea Pass Public Relations, I learned how I wanted to be treated and how I will treat my clients. And that's what matters, how you treat people.
Yeah, and I think when you when you get into entrepreneurship also, and it's kind of a must have anyway, that you really learn how to treat people because you're the face of the brand. You're the face of your public relations and how you deal with your customers and how your customers see you. And so I think it's important for us to even be able to say that, because coming from a environment that probably, even though you love what you do, just by being in an environment that's unhealthy, it makes the thing that you love even a little tainted. You know what I mean? Because it's like, man, I love this job that I get to do, but now I'm not liking it as much because of the environment that I'm doing it in. And so as a solopreneur, working on your own, probably at your own home or wherever, how has just that experience been, being able to cater your own environment, you know what I mean, that you get to work in and just create it and make it what you want it to be? How has that been?
It's interesting because it really has had mostly ups and a handful of downs, very few downs, but it's you're constantly selling. So I'm constantly networking. I'm putting myself out there. I'm selling because of the fact that if I'm not out there, people don't know about Andrea Pass Public Relations. They won't remember me or think of me or refer me. And so you have to be on all the time. And I love that. I love going to networking events. I met so many people from all over the country and the world by Zoom networking events. I run a networking group called Access Success Networking. And I have people from all over the country who come once a month. And we have a great speaker who teaches them something. And I think that being an entrepreneur is tough.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, where's my next paycheck coming from?
Yeah.
And if there's no paycheck coming, what do you do? And listen, I'm a very lucky woman Our insurance is through my husband's company.
Yeah.
And in our world in the US, we have to worry about health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to have health insurance. And there are many people that don't. I'm not judging. Everyone does what's right for them. But we know that for our needs, we need health insurance.
Yeah.
And so if I didn't have that through my husband's job, then I may not be able to be an entrepreneur. I might have to go work for someone else
Yeah.
because of the insurance.
Okay. Okay. So even with that being said, you know, going out on your own, starting your own business, being able to create the environment that you want. But like you said, entrepreneurship is hard. And so you talked about working for the bully boss and working all the time, even on Sundays. But now that you work for yourself, as an entrepreneur, it's kind of sort of the same almost, but now you're just doing the work for yourself. So how has it been being able to find that balance, a work-life balance that you still definitely put in the work that you need for yourself, but then not overworking? Because like you said, you as an entrepreneur, you're looking for that, okay, where's this next check coming from? But finding that balance where you're definitely doing enough to get that next check, but not so much that you lose yourself in the business.
I think that you have to learn the longest sentence in the English language, no. And you need to set boundaries. And I think that there are times I've met with people for new business, and in my head, I'm saying, we're not going to gel. I just knew that it was going to be a disaster. And so I didn't pursue that account. And so it's understanding the balance that you can have. I'm very fortunate. My parents live around the block. Dad is 92, mom's almost 87. They live on their own. But I have to take them to doctors. And so my mother will say to me, all right, we have this appointment. And so I'm blocking it out on my calendar because I need to take them. And
Right.
to me, that's a priority of mine. I'm very lucky. And I'm going to take them to their appointments. And if there are no appointments, we go out to lunch once a week, and I get them out of the house and we go out for lunch. And so by having my own business, I make my own hours. And so, yes, can I talk to somebody at 7 or 8 o'clock at night? Sure. Can I write a document on the weekend? Sure. Or I could go on a vacation and I can say to people, I'm going to be out of pocket for a week. And I don't feel the need to have to check my emails because, like I said, I'm not finding the cure for cancer. And so being an entrepreneur, you figure out what's going to work, how you're going to be able to balance your work and your life. And it's funny because I look even at my husband. My husband does the grocery shopping. I joke that I'm allergic to the supermarket. I hate the supermarket. But he'll say to me, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I don't have a few calls. I'm going to go to the supermarket. And will he then work until 9 o'clock at night? Yeah, okay. Because we get the job done, but we can balance. And I think that, and I say life-work balance. I put life now before work. And it's possible that I'm doing that because my children are out on their own and they support themselves. Yeah. So having that to be able to say, okay, I'm not supporting my children anymore. They're out in the real world, earning their own money and having their own home. And, and I have a grandson, so my daughter has to do daycare so she could work, but I don't have to worry about, I worry, but I don't have to financially support them anymore. So I can think differently and put my life in front of my work, but I get my job done because I have a reputation. And people know if they work with Andrea Pass Public Relations, then I'm getting the job done.
Yeah.
They can count on me to get the job done. So I think figuring out that life-work balance, setting boundaries, learning when to say no, learning when you need to take a course or get a book, read about something, or have a phone call with someone who through networking who could teach you something. And you make that extra effort to always learn and grow in your career, but you're also learning and growing in your life.
I love it. I like what you said. Instead of work-life balance, you said life-work balance because you wanted to make sure you put your life first. And I've been on this journey the last probably since the beginning of this year. And I've been sharing. I've shared it with a couple people that I'm in this space of live the life you love, right? And so I'm just looking in each area of my life and making sure that I love what's going on in that area. Right. And so it started with my hobby. So I got into hiking last year, like toward the end of last year. I got into hiking and I joined a group and we were going out doing these hikes. And I'm like, man, I really love it. You know what I mean? Like I'm really loving this group or whatever. And so the thought came to my mind, like, what if I could love everything in my life just as much as I'm loving this experience? And so I started the mindset of live the life I love and just start looking at each area of my life. It's like, okay, let me make sure I love where my life is at this point, whether it's on the job, whether it's on my hobbies, whether it's, the church that I attend, whatever it is, whatever area that it is, I've just really been intentional about making sure that I love the space that I'm in. And it's been a great journey and I'm really loving it. So I like what you said with the life work balance instead of the other way around, because a lot of times we live it the other way around. You know what I mean? And like you said, when you do have young kids and stuff, then it's like, yeah, okay, sometimes we do have to do that. But there comes a time when all right, we can flip that thing around, and I think that's a great place to be when we can put our life first, and then we'll worry about work later. You know.
And I think you look back at when you were younger in your career,
Mm,
and it was a different world. I think the pre-COVID world was this work, 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 work,
yeah,
and then come home, eat dinner, collapse, and do it all over again. And I think that that's changed so much, especially since COVID.
yeah,
And young people, they're taking, I mean, my son lives on the West Coast. He might be working all day, but at 2 o'clock, he'll go outside and take a walk.
mm,
I'll say, he'll call me. Like, what are you doing? I'm taking a break. He'll get his job done. But it was a beautiful day. He's going out for a walk.
yeah.
We all need to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things with construction as a bricklayer. Um, it's kind of one of those love hate things because on the bad days, like if it's raining or too cold, we don't work. But then when it's nice out, that's when we work because it's the perfect temperatures for us to work. So we always miss the nice days because we at work. So sometimes we just have to be like, you know what, I'm taking off. Forget about it.
Yeah, and it's hard. Listen, you have young children, you have responsibilities, to those young children. You might be saving up for college for those young children, or whatever else their expenses might be. Maybe you're saving up to buy them a car one day, whatever it is. But we had done all of those things. I mean, we started saving for our children's education before we had children.
Mm,
We planned that out. People say, "Oh, you're traveling. We travel a lot now." Yeah, I I didn't do this all these years so that I could do it now.
yeah.
I don't drive a fancy car. Our Toyota Sienna minivan just died 3 months ago. It was 21 years old. Okay. And literally, my husband turned it on and it just started rolling down the driveway. And the brakes were gone. And we're like, all right, it gave us 21 good years, but we don't drive new cars. And now we do. But
Yeah.
we plan things out, and people say you're taking vacations. You know what? I'm a little older. Yeah, I'm going to take a vacation. And I'm not going to worry so much. I don't go for fancy dinners and fancy clothing and fancy jewels. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
Um, but you have to find what you love, and if you love hiking, then you're buying the right gear so you could go hiking,
Right. Yep.
and that's a good investment because you're going to be using that for a long time. And,
Yeah.
and I think that to look at where you've come from, and in my case, surviving a bully boss and starting my own company, has made me realize what matters. And I have friends that are retired. Oh, and we're going to knitting class. Forget it. I can never go to knitting class, or they're playing pickleball 5 days a week. All right, maybe I can play pickleball once a week, but 5 days a week. So I said, you know what? I'm going to stay working because I love it. Keeps my mind going. And, I hear from these, oh, I decided to sleep in. You know what? I don't want to sleep my life away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fun fact. When I was younger, my sister used to knit, and I always wanted to learn because I used to watch her make little hats and stuff. I never did, but it it is something that if I was to have the opportunity, I probably would take it just to learn it because it was something that I wanted to do when I was younger. But before we get out of here, I want to talk about your book, Heart Centered Marketing. Let's talk about the book real quick before we get out of here, because I was just the name alone kind of resonates with me, because it to me it gives, just when you think about marketing and sales, if you say heart centered, then it's really not selling. You know what I mean? It's like, to my mind, it's like giving someone what they already want anyway. So it's not necessarily selling. So tell us a little bit about the book.
It's very interesting because the book is an anthology book. 21 women in marketing categories contributed to this book. Heart-centered marketing, proven strategies that naturally attract and nurture clients. Because the thing is, if you just do the job, the basics, it's not going to establish a relationship. No one's going to give from the heart. But if you are giving from the heart and you have a positive, sometimes not necessarily a positive story to share, but you're approaching it from this natural, I care about this. And my chapter is using public relations to drive sales. And I talk about how doing interviews and talking to people and talking about your product or your service or your book or your nonprofit, whatever it is you're talking about. Every time you do this, you might reach one more and one more and one more. For all I know, there's someone listening to this, your podcast, and saying, wow, I'm going to reach out to Andrea Pass Public Relations. I didn't realize all of that. So by approaching it from this heart-centered approach, the women entrepreneurs that contributed to this heart-centered marketing book that was published by Highlander Press, really give you a tidbit about sales, about advertising, about social media, about public relations, about email marketing, direct marketing. All of this is in this book with different chapters. And when the book came out, we actually received from Amazon the #1 marketing book for that week and the #1 ebook for that week, because it's also an ebook. But I read an ebook on vacation, but when it's an educational business book, I like to write all my little notes, my stickies, in the book. And so it's interesting because when I had this opportunity to contribute to the book, I said, I've represented so many authors, but I've never been an author. And so now I could say I'm an author. And it's a good feeling. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. You could say you're an author.
Yes.
Cool.
I definitely can. I've written, and I keep saying this, in the process of me trying to finish this one hardcover book, I've written 4 ebooks, So, but yes, just being able to say that I am an author and have that, speaker, podcaster, author, on the end of it, I think I enjoy being able to say it, and I think it does give me some little added credibility too. But yeah, it's I think it's a work of love when you put your thoughts to paper, and it kind of seals it, for the long term. Because I can say something now, but then after I say it, whoever heard it, and then it's gone. But when you put it in the book and you write it down, it stays there for years. And who knows, somebody come across it and pick up this book and say, "Oh, this was Ernest's thoughts on this day." I think it's an amazing feeling.
It is. And I'm like, I've done so many different things in my career. And it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm an author. So now I can always say for the rest of my life, I contributed to a book. I'm an author.
Yeah.
And so, especially with heart-centered marketing as the title, it fits so perfectly with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people get to know me as Andrea Pass Public Relations, they know that I give everything from the heart. It's who I am. I'm going to be honest and authentic and tell you like it is. And I'm not just going to take your money and run. There are too many PR people that do that. Not me. It's not who I am. I go above and beyond because you know what? At the end of the day, I want to sleep. I want to sleep at night, knowing that I'm a good person. I'm an honest person. I'm an authentic person. I don't have to deal with bullies anymore.
Right.
In my life. I won't. I set boundaries. And if you're my friend and you're a new friend, great. If you're an old friend, but you're not there for me, I don't need you anymore. Setting boundaries and deciding what's going to work in my life and who am I going to spend my time with. I'm okay. Later tonight, I'll be sitting on the couch with my husband watching a few episodes of Jeopardy. We love sitting and watching Jeopardy. I don't understand how these people know the answers to all those things, but we're very excited if we get a few answers right. But it's the little things in life that makes you happy,
Mm-hmm.
and to heal from those negatives and to move into the positives it's rewarding.
Yes, it is. It is. And I wanna thank you, Andrea, for coming on. I want you to have the last word, and I want you to leave us with a word of advice, and also with your social media handles, or the website and things of that nature, where we can find you to work with you. And just to be in contact with you and follow you. So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys are checking us out on our website, thedealhealfulfill.org, where you can find out more information about me and everything that I have going on, and also book me to come out to be a speaker or to facilitate a workshop for your school or organization. Also, make sure you check out Deal to Heal Tees, which is our inspirational t-shirt line. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Last but not least, make sure you guys go and check us out at ebooksbyejames.com, where you can find some of those ebooks that I mentioned earlier that I've written, including the Core 4, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father, as well as Forgiving Me, the 4-step guide to self-forgiveness. You can find both of those ebooks and others at ebooksbyejames.com. Make sure you guys are checking that out. Also, over the last couple of years, I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops. Used to be every quarter, but now we're doing it every other month. And there's free virtual workshops where we talk about forgiveness, what it is, what it's not, who is it for, what does it mean to forgive, forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others, just everything surrounding forgiveness, which I think is a very important topic. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com to register for our next free virtual workshop, or you can go to Eventbrite and look up Forgiveness Workshop sponsored by the Forgiveness Mission. The workshops are virtual, they're absolutely free, but the information is priceless. So whenever you listen to this episode, either one just passed or one is coming up. So again, go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. Again, Andrea, thank you so very much. Excuse me, for being on. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I can't wait to get the book and definitely going to check it out. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Failure is not an option. Okay, so that's my last word. Failure is not an option. Do things that you love to do and succeed in them. Set your standards the right way and enjoy life. And don't let those bully bosses run you down, because you can be happy. So failure is not an option. You could find me at AndreaPassPR.com. I'm on Facebook, Andrea Pass Public Relations. I'm on LinkedIn, Andrea Pass. I'm on Instagram, Andrea Pass PR. So I'm out there. Please find me, connect with me. And if I could help you in any way to grow your business using press coverage, please reach out to me and we can have a conversation. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you once again for joining the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.